The reality is that as women, we cannot handle the truth. We are not emotionally mature enough, and we're not emotionally stable enough to handle it. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Our topic today is why good men, quote unquote, lie. And to set this up, it's really important for this one to know that this message is for women married to good men. Men who are at their core good-hearted, loving, kind, hardworking, responsible by nature. And we all know as women if we married a good man or not. We know it in our core. We can sometimes be disillusioned because over the years, as we push our husbands away, have our walls up, emasculate our husbands, they begin to respond and react out of character and who they are as a good man. And then we can use that to say, I'm not sure if he's a good man or not. And so we can get disillusioned. But if we slow down and think back to the man we married, we all know if we married a good man or not. So that is who my message is for. And also to good men married to women who struggle with the dynamics that I talk about on the channel. And that's really important for this topic today. What's also really important for this topic and setting it up is that there is a difference, and why I have lie in quotations, there is a difference between lying and not telling the truth as a good man. Lying is a manipulative, intentionally malicious act that is meant to deceive someone. When a good man doesn't tell the truth to his wife, it is a protective mechanism against the wrath of their wife because we can't handle the truth. I've talked about that before and done the few good men quote from Jack Nicholson, but we can't handle the truth. And so I want to give a different framework today than what is taught to us as women and taught to good men about being completely transparent and completely honest in a relationship. Because in my experience, personally, and as a woman and in my marriage, and working with hundreds of women and good men, it is not constructive to be completely transparent and always tell the full truth. So stick with me so that I can explain that. I'm not condoning lying or being deceitful. Talking about what makes a dance and a healthy dynamic between a woman and a good man. So I admire Jordan Peterson very much. And he has a philosophy of that you need to be completely and totally honest and always tell the truth. But for good men who are in a relationship with a woman, have been emasculated, weakened, gaslit, manipulated, it is not safe to be fully transparent and honest with your wives. And the difficult part about that is good men are naturally honest. They want to tell the truth and be forthcoming, and they feel that the marriage with the person that they love, that of course they should be able to tell the full truth and tell their wives anything and be transparent and fully honest. The reality is that as women, again, We cannot handle the truth. We are not emotionally mature enough, and we're not emotionally stable enough to handle it. And this was part of why I was 10 minutes late today, is having to recognize that as much work as I've done on myself and continue to do, and how much I've grown, how much I've changed as a woman and a wife. And if Adam were on with me today, he would tell you he's the luckiest man in the world, and that I'm just amazing. And I still have woman ways that I have to be on top of and recognize in myself. And I had to realize today that I still can't handle the truth. That's why it took me a little bit to come on, and what I'm feeling a bit vulnerable about. There are still some things that as a woman, I can't handle the truth from my husband, because I make it about myself. I use it as something hurtful against me and turn it into a personal attack. And even though I've built the muscle to put on a good face, internally, there's still a lot that comes up for me. And so this isn't to make us as women wrong or bad, as I often say, and for good men not to make your wives wrong or bad or judge. It's understanding each other and understanding the reality. It is only through understanding myself as a woman, for the women listening. This is about understanding ourselves, because it's only through understanding ourselves that we can have the self-awareness, manage our woman ways, and overcome them. That's an ongoing journey. And for good men to understand their wives, so you understand the dynamic. And when we both do that, that's where we can have a dance and find what actually works to have a healthy marriage. As women, we will say that we want the truth. And I think I've talked about that before as well. We want transparency and honesty, and we think that that's the fabric of an intimate relationship, and that we should be able to share our deepest, most vulnerable thoughts and feelings or secrets that we have with each other. Unfortunately, a good man's vulnerable, raw thoughts and feelings and truths are not safe with his wife, because of our emotional immaturity and our inability to handle the responsibility of hearing the truth and the vulnerabilities and deeper thoughts of our husband. It's okay. This is understanding ourselves and continuing to work on our emotional maturity so we can handle more. But also, I had to understand and accept I might not ever get to a place where I'm fully capable of handling the truth from my husband. And that's okay. And when I understand that, then I know there are things that I would rather not know. If it's not imperative and not at the detriment of our relationship or our lives, I would rather not know. And that feels very freeing and really good. And because I trust my husband and I understand myself as a woman and what I can handle and what I cannot, it flies in the face of the relationship advice and marriage advice we hear and get. I mean, I can remember Adam and I, we read a book once, and it was like, you should be so transparent to have access to each other's phones, computers, passwords, and things like that. But we can't handle that as women. We just can't. And that's okay. We need to know that, again, so we can find the dance. This is why good men, quote unquote, lie, meaning don't tell the truth always, because they know they aren't safe and the truth will be used against them. The truth is what incites the wrath in us as women. You know, I have many, many examples of students who have come through the men's course that I have, and some men with really demanding jobs. Like, you know, I've had plenty of firefighters come through. I had a firefighter. He fights wildfires. He has a whole crew, teaches men how to fight wildfires, and terrified of his wife when he started the course. First responder who jumps out of helicopters to save people, terrified of his wife, because that is the wrath that we have inside of us that creates an unsafe environment. A fundamental requirement in order to have a truthful, vulnerable relationship is that you have to have a safe environment. And as women in our woman ways, we are incapable of creating that safe space. We take everything personally and as a personal attack on us, feeling criticized, betrayed, and found wrong. So we can't handle that responsibility of the truth. We only see honesty as an attack on us. And the reason that we can't handle the truth and don't have the emotional maturity to handle the truth and vulnerabilities of our husbands is because as women, we're wired as pain avoiders, meaning we don't want to feel our own insecurities and vulnerabilities, which is why we hide in being emotional. Because I know for some people that's confusing when I say women are pain avoiders, because like, what? But you're so emotional. That's actually a way to avoid the pain of our own vulnerabilities and insecurities. So we can't handle our husband's insecurities or vulnerabilities because we can't handle our own. Whereas good men are wired as problem solvers. So they see being honest and telling the truth as a way to bring the issues up and solve the problems. But then they're met with their truth being weaponized against them. So there's no emotional maturity for us as women to handle the responsibility of someone else's truths and vulnerabilities. And this is why men are not lying. If you're married to a good man and he hides something or he isn't forthcoming and tells you outright, he is not trying to hurt you. A good man has no intention of maliciously hurting his wife. It doesn't mean he can't make mistakes that are hurtful. However, that is not his intention and what he is setting out to do. If he is not forthcoming about something or hides something, he's protecting himself because the environment is not safe for him to be honest. And oftentimes he is also protecting his wife, knowing she can't handle it. We're going to go through 5 reasons a good man should not be honest with his wife, with the caveat that, of course, there are times where you absolutely need to be honest and share something that is going on or that has happened. But there are times where discernment must be used where it's not helpful or constructive to the relationship to tell the whole truth. And I know that's a very controversial, provocative statement, but I'm here to share a different way and a different path than what is out there to actually have healthy marriages. Because if what was out there to teach us to have a healthy marriage worked, we would not have the epidemic of issues and challenges in marriages and the pain that good men go through and what they suffer in through behind closed doors as women living as victims, being totally miserable and unhappy in ourselves. If what we were being taught worked, we wouldn't have these issues. So we need a different way through the understanding of our differences as women and good men. That is the only way to find what I call the dance. And without those understandings, we cannot have the dance. So I'm not condoning or telling good men to lie, but helping women and good men to understand that as women, you'll hear this many times today, that we are not emotionally mature enough to handle the responsibility of knowing the truth. So how do we understand that both as women and good men and find what works in the relationship? It's not good or bad. We literally are wired differently and we literally live in 2 different realities. Good men must know you cannot trust your wife with the truth, and yet there are times you are going to need to share the truth, and we'll talk about how to do that for good men and how as women to handle that. But good men need to see the reality of their wife and understand the dynamics in your marriage so that you are not duped by your wife, that you are supposed to be completely transparent, which is what we gaslight you to think you should do, but you can't. This is for us as women to understand our differences, accept them, and find a path forward in the marriage that works. As I shared, I'm not emotionally mature enough and in my wiring as a woman to handle all the truths my husband might tell me. And I have a very, very honest husband that knows and was with me today, would tell you he overshares. He's an oversharer. He knows that. And I have to embrace it to make me stronger, but I can't always handle everything he tells me. And there's plenty that I would rather not know. And when we can embrace that and know that about ourselves as women, we can get out of our fantasy and wrong thinking that we need to know every little thing and every deep thought or fear or feeling from our husbands, and embrace our differences and find that dance and actually create a safe environment when something does need to be shared, that we can put on our big girl pants, find the emotional maturity in us and work through it and not weaponize it against our husbands. So again, 5 reasons a good man should not be honest with his wife. And knowing that there are caveats to this and not condoning lying, but understanding our differences as women and good men. Number 1, women weaponize the truth and vulnerabilities of their husbands. We will use a good man's vulnerabilities and truth as ammunition as to why our husbands can't be trusted, which results the response of a good man to his wife, knowing his truths and vulnerabilities are used as ammunition against him, is why he begins to hide things. It's a protective mechanism. It is not a malicious path to hurt his wife. An example is telling your wife about your past mistakes, even before you met her. You think it's a safe place to share your past, maybe mistakes you've made, relationships you've had with women, and you will share thinking that it's okay to do so, and your wife says, yeah, you can share that with me. And then we store it and we use it as ammunition against you in a multitude of ways. Tell me the examples, men or ladies, how you've done this, and men sharing examples of how this has happened in your marriage. That helps normalize these issues for each other to know we're not alone. The second reason a good man should not be honest with his wife: your honesty and vulnerability will be perceived by your wife as hurtful and wrong for who she is. So, for example, a good man is a problem solver. He would like to share with his wife his challenges in the marriage and relationship and his experience of her. And some of you listening have done this by sharing a video or two with your wife. Say you bring up to your wife, you don't listen to me. Meaning I share with you what I'm feeling or a problem I'm having, and you don't hear me, and you're not willing to do anything about it, and you just make me wrong. You tell your wife that in a kind, calm way to try to work on the issue, and then we will turn that around and take it as a personal attack and perceive that you're telling us we are wrong or defective in some way. And then we'll go into total crazy making mode and turn it back onto you and make you the bad guy of why we do the things we do, which then a good man gets sucked into that, gets gaslit thinking that there's some validity to what his wife is saying, and the issue gets turned back on him and things he needs to change, a good man will try to change those things, and his wife still isn't happy and is still making him wrong and bad. That's number 2. A good man's honesty and vulnerability will be perceived by his wife as hurtful and wrong for who she is. The third reason a good man should not be honest with his wife: women conflate what you do and associate it with something totally unrelated. And again, please, the men listening, share example in the comments of how you've told your wife one thing and then she turns it into a totally separate issue and conflates the truth you are telling her. And we will say, if you did this, how can I trust you over here with that? And just blow it up to be so much bigger than what it is. I'll give a couple of examples, and I tried to think of, kind of the bigger issues. And again, tell me what you experience in the comments and chat. Maybe you share with your wife that you went to a strip club once with some buddies, and she gets upset and says, well, if you did this once, how do I know you're not doing it now? Or if you did this, then how do I know you're not cheating on me with other women? And we will totally conflate that. So I have another example from a student who his wife was constantly on him about what he ate and his diet. And this is like a healthy guy, physically active, reasonably healthy, but he liked to enjoy an ice cream from Dairy Queen once in a while. And he also liked some Oreos once in a while. And his wife would fly off the handle if any of those things were in the house. And this was like a pretty stout guy. And I also remember him sharing, like, his wife would make him lunch, but only make him like half a sandwich with a little side of veggies, and then get upset when he wanted more to eat and would get something to eat. But he used to hide Oreos. He would hide Oreos in the trunk of his car, so when he wanted an Oreo, he could have them without his wife being on his back about having an Oreo every once in a while. And she conflated that of, if you're lying about this and hiding this from me, then I can't trust you with anything. What else are you lying to me about? And that's how we conflate the issues. Another might be that a guy goes to a bachelor party, younger guy goes to a bachelor party, and he didn't know, but there's a stripper there. And he, being an honest, good man, tells his wife, just want you to know, there was a stripper there. And his wife will conflate that. Well, why did you stay? And does that mean that you don't love me anymore? Or that you don't want to be with me? Or what did you do with the stripper? I want to know. Tell me everything that happened. And we will conflate the issue. So don't tell your wife when those things happen. We can't handle it. Number 4 of why good men should not be honest with their wives: telling the truth makes you a liar in her eyes. This one really, to me, was a total mind F. This is what we do. And I had to see this in myself. Again, why I was late coming on today, I had to see these things in me in a deeper way than I have before. Telling the truth makes you a liar in her eyes. Isn't that just crazy? So, example, maybe you were scared to tell your wife you were going to go away with some buddies for a couple days to go hunt or fish, and didn't want to face how she would make you feel doing that. And say you've got a business trip. So you tell your wife, I've got a business trip these couple days, but you're actually going hunting or fishing with your guy buddies. And then you feel bad. You lied. So you tell your wife, I'm really sorry. I told you this, but this is actually what happens. And you tell the truth. And then she makes you a liar. Well, you're a total liar. What else are you lying to me about? So telling the truth makes you a liar in your wife's eyes. And number 5, why a good man should not be honest with his wife. We twist your truth into our victim story as why we are so unhappy. we twist your truth into our victim story as why we are so unhappy. So in this one, we might pretend we are okay with what you share. I'll give an example in a moment. But then we use it to weave it into our victim story to blame you of why we are so unhappy. But a term I use, happy pill it, meaning stuff it down, shove it, pretend everything is okay, and never tell our husbands how we feel. But we use it to tell ourselves, this is the reason why I'm so miserable. This is the reason why I'm so unhappy in my marriage. And it might be maybe, I know I've got a million examples of this, but and this one was like down to the wire and I was having to work through some things. But when I came up with is maybe your husband or man is honest with his wife that he doesn't enjoy going to her family's events. And he'd rather not go to all the family events, maybe even something like Christmas or a family reunion or a gathering. And a woman says, oh, okay, that's okay. I can understand. That's fine. But then she weaves it into her victim story. He doesn't like my family. He's not involved. He doesn't do anything with me. And we never tell our husbands that we're not okay with it. But then we use that as our wall of blame against you of why we're so unhappy. So again, please share some examples in the comments. But those are the 5 ways or 5 reasons why a good man should not be honest with his wife. Number 1, women weaponize the truth and vulnerabilities of their husbands. Number 2, your honesty and vulnerability will be perceived by your wife as hurtful and wrong for who she is. Number 3, as women, we conflate what you do and associate it with something totally unrelated. Number 4, telling the truth makes you a liar in her eyes. And number 5, we twist your truth into our victim story as why we are so unhappy. And as women, we need to recognize that it's how we create an unsafe environment for our husbands to be honest, that they hide things and are not forthcoming. They don't feel safe to do so because that is fundamental. To be able to be honest, there has to be a safe environment. So I want to get into a little bit of the solution. I'm going to talk to the women first. Ladies, we have to just recognize, accept, and own and take responsibility that we can't handle the truth. We're wired differently, and that's okay. That's what I had to do in planning for this, is embrace where I still can't handle the truth. And I've done a lot of work. I've grown a lot. I've come a long, long way. And my husband would tell you the same. But I also have to accept some of these parts of my wiring and how I am as a woman so I can be the best I can be and not fall into this disillusion of what a relationship is supposed to be. We have to let go of the fantasy and what we've been taught that a healthy, intimate relationship is this transparency between each other, because that's not it. It's actually unhealthy to share everything because it creates a divisiveness and a destruction in the marriage. It's the total opposite. We think being fully transparent, always being fully honest, our husbands being fully transparent, fully honest, is what's going to create a close, intimate, healthy relationship. But it does the opposite. And I'll give an example in this of, my husband knows a lot of what I teach because we went through a lot of learning in this together. And my husband, as a good man, doesn't want to know. And good men, you can know this too. You don't want to know all the inner workings of what's happening in us, in our woman ways, because a good man can't understand it and it's very hurtful. So say I have a weak moment in one of my woman ways and I dismiss my husband and have no empathy for what he's going through, and I become shut down and distant, which he can feel, and he says, whoa, what just happened? Where did you go? It's not constructive for our relationship that I give him the ins and outs of what just happened in me internally. It's just hurtful to him because he can't understand it. How could you do that to someone you love? Because he's not wired that way as a good man. It's best in that moment that I share, I'm sorry I got distracted or I got caught up in my own stuff. I am so sorry. And then move forward and then actually follow through to do better in that. But he doesn't need to know the breakdown of what's happening in me as a woman. It's just hurtful. So that's an example for us as women of it's not constructed to the relationship that he know all your deepest vulnerabilities, secrets, and fears, because they're different for us as a woman, and they are oftentimes very hurtful to them as good men. But the key for us as women is having a healthy relationship with ourselves and getting into Camp Take Responsibility, out of Camp Victim, so that we develop the self-awareness to understand ourselves in our woman ways without making ourselves bad or wrong. So we're in control of our emotional state and in control of how we show up and respond with our husbands. And you'll never be perfect, but that's the path and journey of evolving and becoming the best women and wives we can be. And our husbands get the benefit. I only have the self-awareness I have by continuing to commit and recommit to Camp Take Responsibility and being honest about myself with these woman ways. And then I can embrace and trust my husband and know for me as a woman, I don't want to know everything, and that's okay. And it's not healthy for the relationship. It, again, creates a divisiveness. So solution for men. There are going to be times, of course, when you have to tell the truth about something, and you've got to be honest with your wife. And you want to learn to embrace the wrath when you need to be honest and share something, to expose what's that weakness in me that I'm so scared of my wife. And she is showing up in ways that makes you scared, but you have to overcome that weakness in yourself so you're not scared of your wife. So when you do need to tell her something, you know the reality. You know she's not going to handle this well. You know your wife, she's going to fly off the handle, or she's going to shut down and just like turn into ice, or she's not going to talk to me for a week, or she's going to turn this around and make me feel like the worst person on the planet. When you embrace that and know that as the reality of your wife, then you can prepare and step into that lioness den and use it and embrace it to become stronger in yourself. I have to do the opposite as a woman. Like I said, I have a husband that's a really good man, is really honest, and he knows and self-admits that he overshares. I can't be a victim to that. I have to embrace and know that's my husband and embrace that to become stronger in myself and create more emotional maturity and stability in myself when he overshares and maybe shares something I would rather not know. I have to embrace it. So a good man has to embrace the wrath of his wife to become stronger in himself. That's what we do as men and women, is embrace each other's differences, embrace the good, the bad, the ugly, to grow and learn and keep evolving into the best versions of ourselves. So if you need to be honest and forthcoming about something with your wife, or you say, that's just how I'm wired and there's no way I'm going to be able to not tell her things, then you have to know, okay, that's you. And how do you become strong enough in yourself to where you're not scared of her and how she's going to be in her woman ways, and accept that's her wiring as a woman. How do I grow and learn from it? And then the other piece for good men is learning to have discernment. When you share something, have discernment. Is this constructive for me to share, or is this going to be destructive to both of us? And learning to, something I teach in my men's course, learning to shoulder your burdens and learning to shoulder those vulnerabilities or fears you have, knowing your relationship with your wife isn't a safe place to share those things, and who are the men in your life or a mentor that you can, but learning you're strong enough to shoulder those in yourself, and it will make you feel really good about yourself as a man. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.